I am unashamed. What about you?
So Jace, you've been your last week has been interesting.
4 days, about 12 hours a day. People follow me around.
You're back in the game.
So I got to give appreciation to Unashamed Nation. We had a plan about doing a show about our metal detecting ventures.
And you literally left it up to our audience as to whether you would try this or not. And because they overwhelmingly said, yes, we want this show, you spent the last 4 days filming, working on this.
We actually filmed it. We got a couple more days to go, but that's, now you sit around and they ask you questions about it. They're like, what happened when
You're in the interview phase.
So I'm off today just so I could do this, and so they could gather themselves probably, because this has been all day in 100-degree heat. And
what's funny is Dad, it's really, I think it's reignited his passion. He's wishing he could have been out there with y'all for the.
Yeah, boy, I hate I'm missing that.
So
what can, I know you can't tell us everything, but
I can't. I mean,
give us a little
They
bit.
said say nothing, but I was like, the people that I'm
It's our
talking
audience.
to,
That's right. We deserve
you
something.
built this. So no, it actually worked. I mean, the crazy part is that, somebody had the bright idea to let Si pick where we go.
Because that was news to me. I didn't realize Si was a part of the project.
Well, because the Unashamed listeners, remember that was yes, do the show and include Si.
We got a lot of feedback
And
on that.
what I didn't realize is this developed not really on the show, but just in real life. Which, by the way, this was, if you want to just see some cameras, follow us around and do. This will be the show for you, because they're like, what are we doing? Follow us.
Yep.
Get your cameras out.
You're putting the real in reality TV on this one.
But I didn't realize that Si's turned this into his retirement plan, because he's like, hey, I want to find things worth millions of dollars, and I'm going to use y'all's sweat. It's kind of what developed here.
So it's funny. Si is he's the puppet master on this.
Yeah, and I'm throwing this person who had this idea for Si to do that, but that was me, because I thought, how could he screw that up? He wanted to be a part of it, so I'm like, well, read the letters from the listeners, because they're saying, come hunt here. There's lost treasure. So I figured. So that's kind of what the premise started, and we go do it.
So
I noticed there's more than one. There's a lot. Jade fever, you see advertised, but treasure hunting in the human mind, for some reason, seems to have always been there. We have this idea. Even Jesus brought it up.
Oh,
when you find the gospel, you find me.
Yeah,
it's like hidden. A man went out in the field, a hidden treasure.
Yep.
Well, that's kind of a little concept there. They're looking.
So they were doing it before metal detectors.
They sure were.
This goes back 2,000 years.
They sure were.
And there is something about finding. You think about
human nature itself. They're always. You look at how many texts that Jesus said. You look for this, you look for that, you look for this, you look for temporary things, but I'm the one you need to find. Search out, find me. All the proverbs. Find out what wisdom is, real wisdom is.
But he also turned it around where he's the human.
In other words, just characterize this. We have this treasure in jars of clay. You're like. Better hold on. That's why you better hold on to that. If you.
Well, I'm not sure I'm correct on this, but I think this is a correct story. I think it was 1940 something. Some shepherd's kid throws a rock, somewhere around the Dead Sea. It goes in a cave and he hears something break. And so then they start looking and they find the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were some of the back to Isaiah. And all these great, and that was a find just in the 20th century.
Literally treasure.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Think of all the phrases where he said, seek and you shall find. But actually, Jesus turned it around where he was the detector. Mm-hmm. When he had the story in Luke 15.
Mm-hmm. This has multiple spiritual connotations. That
Yeah.
if you would, it is. It really.
Plus, I like the idea that people have to give you like it's people's property. And like you have to go there, and like there's an interaction there.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of stuff interests me. I mean,
Of course, Al, I was able to say, I found Jesus. I don't need any more treasures. Y'all hunting for, but get out of it. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, these TV people.
I know one thing. It's not a sinful thing. What y'all are doing
No,
is
it's a
scratching in the earth, saying, "Whoa, here! What I have here? This was back in 1892." It's man kind of lacks, discovering secrets.
That's right.
Oh, I love this, But these TV people found that out, the first place we went, they knew who I was because they recognized me.
Yeah.
And they're like, I told them what we're doing. They're like, man, you can knock yourself out. He said, but you can leave all those people wherever you found them. They looked at me like
The crew.
yeah. I said, hey, just look. I mean, let's just take
So,
this one.
Jace, you're already rich and famous. So, what's your motivation for doing this?
I just like to hunt. I just like to hunt lost things. I mean, honestly, Murray got me into this. It's fun for me, especially when there's not a real something I can eat season going on.
Right.
But I just like the pursuit. I like figuring out where this stuff is through maps and research, and it's just lost. And I mean, I'm telling you, the biggest motivation is every time I go out there, I tend to think about God doing that in my life. He pursued me. The circumstances come up. I hear his glorious message, and then it's like he found me. And so that's why I wanted to name. We still got to come up with a name. I came up with one I thought they would go with, but they didn't, because we got all these names from our listeners, but they didn't like, either they were already copyrighted or they didn't like them. So I was like, I got it. Dirt bags.
Dirt bag.
They went, no, that has a negative connotation. I said, well, wait a minute now. We're digging in the dirt.
Jace, you being on the earth is a negative connotation.
So then I said, look, we're dirt bags before, God moves in His grace and He cleans
Dirt
us
bag
up.
still holds on to us. That's got a little grip on it. They're saying that bunch of idiots.
Well, that's what.
When we dig in the dirt, we're looking for
They're
bags
following
of gold.
somebody they've never seen, and they're following somebody and been putting their life on it, on somebody that claimed he did something back here, the old writings. But I read them, and I'm like, whoa, that's right there. It's worth investigating. So I literally found Jesus through investigation, but I didn't investigate till I was going around like a dog chasing his tail. Then I'm like, I might ought to.
Whenever I was on Glenn Beck's show, he looked at me. The first thing he said, Al, I read your book, yours and Lisa's book. He said, you are a real dirtbag.
Oh, really?
That's what he's telling me.
Maybe I shouldn't. I was shocked to think.
I appreciate that, Glenn. He said, oh, don't take offense. I can out dirtbag your dirtbag. That's what he told me.
I was fixing to say, if it helps his feelings, I said, no, there's big time dirt baggers.
I took no offense because he was right on target.
I think maybe you're onto something there, Jace.
I thought
it applies to all human beings at one time or another. We're all dirt baggers.
It takes me back.
And we're digging in the dirt.
It takes me
for
back.
Bags of gold. I mean, it's kind of a two-way. I thought it would work.
Well, you remember after we had y'all, because I wasn't there yet, but after y'all filmed the first 2 episodes of Duck Dynasty, there was still no name for it. And I can remember text chains going around, which I was a part of, because everybody's trying to think of something. And we were convinced, Willie wanted to call it Bayou Big Time.
Oh boy,
that was his.
I didn't hear that.
Oh yeah,
I'd have gave a thumbs down on that.
Well, apparently they did too, because he was convinced that's what it needed to be, and he was kind of the lead person there early, and then Duck Dynasty came, and I remember everybody saying, "Wow, this is about a Chinese restaurant." I mean, just nobody liked it. None of us. I don't remember.
I've had 2 ideas I didn't like either one. My first one was Family Jewels.
Now I think that's funny.
Yeah,
because it's
shooting a little low.
But we're a
pun taken into account.
But we're
shooting a little low.
That's the lowbrow.
There is a slang definition of that, but I mean, I'm saying we're family. We're looking for jewels, and I thought And Jep's name is Jules. So
that's right. I didn't think that's another little element.
because you got to remember, it's just us doing it, so it's different from what we did, Duck Dynasty. I mean, this year is they're just following us around. I mean, I'm not sure how they're gonna put all this together. I really sympathize with the person wherever they drop this footage off to and say, here you go.
Turn this into
So
22
this is
minutes.
not going to hurt your pride if it goes kaput. It bursts, whatever.
No, but I will say this. After 4 days, because we pretty well follow us and we filmed the 4 days. It was really fun because I was 100% myself. I was like, this is what all these people, they had no idea what we were fixing to do. And they just filmed it and they'll put it together and we'll see.
Your listeners may not realize what's fixing to come their way, but in the way of all the human beings I've met on planet Earth, Murray Crow, who is with y'all on this, has multiple skill sets. And I mean,
you would not
dude.
I wish
he has a head on his shoulders. Is what I'm saying. Because when they look at Murray, they may think, oh, if they knew Murray Crow like I know him, I'm the one that told him about Jesus, and baptized him. But Murray is as solid in the faith, but he is a highly intelligent man.
Yeah, that's what really is been awesome is because
he's a great historian, by the way.
He is. And I mean, he knows things and has ideas that you just look. I've been knowing him for years, but some of the things that happened, I mean, I had no idea.
As far as Louisiana history goes, I mean, he is.
Oh, his skill set legitimizes poor me and Jep. I'm just hunting, and Jep's like a deer in the headlights. But
if the audience just gets knowledge from listening to Murray Crow, it'd be a pretty helpful
sometime
thing.
In the future when it's appropriate, I want to have Murray on our podcast, and not just to talk about the show, but mainly to talk about when he came to Jesus. I mean, he's got a great story. And he's just our kind of guy. I love Murray. He's always been just a supportive person, to me personally.
His brother was one of the greatest conversions I've ever seen. His brother, he brought him down there and he said, I'm worried about my brother. We need to get him on board with Jesus. I said, well, let's give her a whirl. So we went through this Bible study and we had another one. We had about 3 or 4 Bible studies. And he finally said, I think I should go to the river and let you baptize me. He said, but I don't think you have to. So, and I said, hey, just think about it. So I got up and he said, hey, where are you going? That's Murray's brother. And Murray was there. I said, well, you said, you might have a little epiphany somewhere in the future and we'll take you to the river and baptize you. But right now, let it ride. But he said, hey, I didn't say I wasn't going to do it. I'm just saying you don't have to do it. I said, well, we'll wait a while. And he said, let me give me a glass of tea. He said, hey, where are you going? I said, well, you said wait. So
he took over the Bible study.
So I ended up trying to talk him out of it. I said, well, don't do it. Just wait, whatever. And he said, oh, no, I didn't say I wasn't going to do it. I just said I don't think I have to do it. I said, I said, Murray, he's your brother.
Had he embraced Jesus at this? I mean, what was his thought? Okay.
Well, he just, that was his response.
He was grappling with what baptism is.
Yeah, so I'd read him a few more texts. I said, it's mentioned almost 100 times in the Bible there. And I said, you might ought to just take note of that. That's quite a bit. I said, and you never heard about it until Jesus showed up. And the guy who was paving the way for Jesus became famous for it. I said, I'm just saying, it's mentioned a lot. Jesus had to go make disciples and baptize them. So that's what I'm telling you right now. You'll be a disciple if we go down there and I baptize you. Jesus said, do it. See right here, Matthew 28. So every time I would try to walk away from him, he would say, whoa, where are you going? Wait a minute, I'm still. So we went down to the edge of the riverbank. He's still saying, I just don't believe it, but but if we said, well, let's wait then. He said, no, I'm not going to do it. Said, I'm going to do it. I said, well.
So he shook his head all the way down the water.
I said, Murray, your brother has a hard head. He said, I know it. I've been dealing with him for years. But he did do that. He's passed on now. And between you and me, I'm glad he did.
Well, let's take a break. So I said
I wouldn't have judged him either way.
No.
But
well, it's out yesterday. We had several baptisms at WFR, and one of them was a police officer that listens to the podcast, and so he brought his family down. But I didn't know it. He had been communicating with Godwin. He listened to the podcast that Godwin was on here, and Godwin shared his testimony. And so he said, when I heard Godwin's testimony, for some reason, I mean, it just penetrated me. He said, I've watched that episode about 10 times since, because I was like, why is this so powerful to me? So something about John's story. So he reached out to John and he said, I want to come to West Monroe and I want you to baptize me, because your story is what impacted me. And so yesterday he was there, had his family, great guys from Oklahoma, and John baptized him. But there were several other ones.
yeah, that one from American Samoa.
Yeah, I met him too.
I said, how's it going? Where are you from? I thought he picked to say, some state. He said, Samoa. I said, Samoa? I said, as in the middle of the ocean. He said, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I said, how'd you end up way over here, He said, well, I was in the Army, and he was a career Army guy, truck driver, mechanic.
Yeah, I met him.
And he ended up being a truck driver, but
I loved it.
I said, I believe you're the one that came the farthest away.
You get the farthest away award. Yeah. So he came over
Great guy.
To our place before he came into your place. And I shook his hand. He started crying. And he kind of apologized. He said, I don't know why I'm so emotional. I said, well, I do, because you're submitting your life to Christ. I mean, if there's something to get emotional about, that's it.
Life and immortality was fixing to be his, and he moved on it.
So I mentioned, Jase, at the end of the baptisms, they had announced that our friend Clark Smith passed away this weekend. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
He died of a heart attack a couple of days ago. And young guy, I mean, he's our age. I say young. He's probably in between you and me. And I told the story about, it's all, when something sudden, tragic like that, it's tough, obviously. And so
I like the word departed instead of passed away.
Yeah, me too. And so that's what I said. I said, I remember the night at the marriage retreat, late in the night, Jason and Missy had been studying with Clark and Debbie.
All night.
Yeah. It was and so I said, and then he got baptized. He finally, embraced Christ, and he got baptized in a hot tub.
Well, that was cold.
But
it was 28 degrees outside. There was a lake out there. And he's like, I want you to baptize me now. And I thought, well, we need some water. And he's like, well, there's a lake out there. I was like, it's 28 degrees out there. And so they went down to the was it a hotel? What was it?
Yeah, it was like a resort.
Resort.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we have a hot tub, but they were renovating. They just put it in. So I was like, perfect. It's got water in it? Yeah. But it was cold. I mean, it was near freezing.
It's better than outside.
Well,
yeah, I mean, it was.
So I made the point that because we had just witnessed all those baptisms and they had just announced that this had happened. So a lot of people are obviously close to him and were shocked because they didn't know he had passed away. And it was a heart attack, so it happened quickly. And so I said, that he was prepared for last night, because that was like Saturday night. I said, he was prepared for what happened. Because he's there now. But he did that because he gave his life to Christ and submitted himself to him all those other years ago. And that's what we live for. So I was like, as much as I want to pray for Debbie and John Clark and their family, because I know how tragic it is to lose somebody so quick.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm not. He's in heaven. He won the race. So a guy like that. I just thought in that moment we were watching all those new births that it's a reminder that you want to be ready for the day, because it's coming for all of us. Whether it's a heart attack.
Yeah, they were really good friends. They were in our house church for years.
I know, great family. So anyway, we talked about that, but then I also talked about a guy named Brady, who's 21 years old. He's from Oklahoma, and so he had sent an email to Bonnie initially, and then Bonnie forwarded it on to me. And sometimes it takes a little while before
my assistant.
Yeah, we get to people, and so he told me that he had a terrible, he hadn't been living right, isolated, college student, and he said, but I started listening to the podcast. He said, for the last year, I finally figured out Jesus is Lord, but he hadn't been baptized yet. And so he didn't say about coming down here, which a lot of people do, but he was like, I know you know some people in Tulsa. Can you get me connected? So I sent him an email back and I said, I'll have somebody talk to you within the hour, because I got some Troy Tabor and some buddies up at Park Plaza. And so they called him He drove up to park. They baptized him, and then they sent me some video of him getting baptized and some pictures. So I hadn't met Brady. He listens to the podcast. So congratulations, Brady. You did the right thing. But I love the picture they sent because everybody's kind of locked arm in arm. There was 8 or 10 of them there. And I was telling our church, I said, this is what happens when you surrender and then find your forever family. Because here was a guy that felt isolated and alone, just when he was not living right. And now all of a sudden you got these people with their arms around him, right there he never met before. He's got all this forever family. So I just thought it was really special, the idea that that's what we're born into. When you're the new birth is you're born into a forever family.
That's it.
And so when we meet people, just like yesterday, and I was watching all these people, it's very inspiring. And I know the podcast is helping a lot of people get there, which is I guess it's an honor for us, to be able to do. So, but that was a good day. And then you baptized, or somebody baptized the Samoan.
The Samoan.
Yeah.
Yep, they did. We had some visitors there. One couple came down. He said he was with the Mennonite community. I said, well, good to have you. And I think his dad was an evangelist. But they were there celebrating their wedding, their honeymoon. So they dropped by. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's pretty funny.
Yep.
Come to Monroe.
Great little couple.
For your honeymoon.
He asked me, he said, do you have any advice for you people that just recently married, in the last day or two? And I said,
I bet you, I know the verse you quoted.
what's that?
What's
It's
that one
better
you
not,
always?
It's better not to.
People will face many troubles in this life. I didn't give him that, but I didn't want to spook him. I did tell him, I said, be patient with her cooking, my friend. I said, allow for time for growth in the cooking arena. I said, and you would do well, lady, if you would learn how to cook well. You have to eat or you starve to death. I said, so y'all be patient with each other, love one another, be quick to forgive each other, and you'll be okay.
If she grew up in a Mennonite family, odds on she probably knows how to cook. She
probably so.
They're
I'm not
pretty
sure
good.
What that is, a Mennonite community.
They're basically, from what I gather, and if they're Amish that have embraced a lot more of. They're kind of the Amish don't accept them because they embrace technology.
I didn't really care about their names or anything else. I know they had faith in Jesus Christ, so his death, burial, and resurrection. So I'm all in with the Mennonites, Amish, or whoever.
But you got to remember when I went to did that event in the Amish community that I talked to you about, I learned that there's different levels of.
Right.
I mean, some of them do have a little technology. It's kind of like whatever your clan.
By the way, a lot of their issues that concerns people of this day, every group who follows Jesus, this Romans 14 deals with a lot of differences that just show up, whether it be intake of food, whether it be whether you take pharmaceuticals or not, or whether you how much do you trust the government, and are you rebellious against? So all these factors come up in Romans 14, 13, and 14. Do you agree? You agree?
Oh, I do. And in fact, yesterday,
we really could learn a lot from 13 and 14 as a group of individuals with all of the various personalities and customs, to bring everybody together under one head,
right?
Even Jesus. It's quite the task when it gets down to food intake. There's been this argument about food and rules surrounding what you eat and, whatever. But food has been kind of like a centerpiece that the human race has been fighting about for 2,000 years, or before then, the Old Testament even.
It goes way back, and it could have been, let's take another break. So, Jase, one of our favorite sponsors, a product that we use every night, is Helix Sleep, which has a fantastic mattress. I never even knew about these guys until they started sponsoring our podcast. But they personalize the mattresses, and I didn't realize that. And it goes because you go and take this little quiz on what you like in terms of firmness or whatever. Jase has done it. I've done it as well. Really good mattress. They give you a 100-night sleep trial, which is fantastic. So a third of a year, you get to check it out. And if you don't like it, they'll pick it up, but you will. So we highly recommend it. It's a great product. You can go to Helix, HELIX sleep.com/unashamed. You take your quiz. and then they're going to send it right to your house. They've got a 10-year warranty, and like I said, you get trapped for 100 nights, risk-free, and so it's worth a shot. Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our Unashamed listeners. So you get another little bonus. HelixSleep.com/unashamed. That's HelixSleep.com/unashamed. Up to $200 off, 2 free pillows, and a great night's sleep. It goes way back. You're right, Dad. This could have been, of course, the way I look at it, just looking at the text, when he's talking in 13, he's talking about how we respond to governing authorities. Then he talked about
starts out with loving each other,
and then he starts out with how we respond to the people around us, which is your neighbor, which that means in the church, out of the church, whatever. And then he talks about your behavior, how you respond to your own inner self, that you should always respond in light.
And all the rules surrounding how a lot of people say, Jim DeMint, one of the previous politicians, said, we're portrayed in some circles as the religion is hate. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
It's hate because, people could bust in on your life, and start making one rule after the other. And the creeds that are all up there in front of them instead of the word of God, the creed kind of rides herd on the Bible. So you run into all kinds of issues.
Well, I made the point, Dad, that Paul uses 2 illustrations when we get to 14 about food, meat in particular, because that was an issue in the first century especially.
Yep.
And then he talked about days, certain days that were viewed as, this is something I want to celebrate. And other people said, no, you can't celebrate this day.
Plus, if you live by a code that had food laws for 1,500 years,
right,
to break that up and to say there are no more food laws,
right.
He sent them a giant movie screen out of heaven. It had 4-footed animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along, everything you can pretty well eat or whatever. And he said, arise, kill, and eat,
Right.
No more food laws. That shockwave is still here to this day.
Well, I got a theory on this. What's the first thing you do? Because now here you got modern Christianity. We all meet at the church building.
Yep.
What's the first thing you do as soon as the service is over?
Go eat.
You say, what are we going to eat? So controversy ensues.
That's right.
Because I learned about in year 1.
Can you eat, take a bite while you're inside the hallowed halls of a church building, or do you have to go outside?
And look, I learned in year 1 of my marriage when my wife would say, where are we going to eat? If I said it doesn't matter, that's the worst thing you ever say. She wants you right then to make a decision. Now, that don't mean she's going to agree with it, but it's better off than saying it doesn't matter. Then it's like, what are we going to do?
Well, we go through Romans 13 and 14. It's for everyone to read, no matter how strict they are against various rules on what you eat and what you don't eat. It's all right here. That I'll just give you a little update, an overview here. It's love your God, love Jesus, and cut your neighbors some slack on all these issues about food and drink.
Well, my point was that we all eat. I mean, you have to eat. So I think if it's something that everybody has to do to live, and then we're all different, it's just something that's going to be controversial.
No, but I thought about just when you said that. What does everybody do as soon as it's over? At our church at WFR, because sometimes I'll walk over to the other. We have 2 services running simultaneously. I'll walk over to close out the other service, and there's a stampede of people coming out of that service. Most of them are recovery houses, and they're trying to get off drugs and alcohol and doing great and find Jesus. But they're all, it's like a herd heading out back to smoke a cigarette because they've been in there for an hour and a half. and it's time for a smoke. So, but even that would have been controversial. You know, we would have there would have been a period of time.
You're not endorsing that either.
No, I don't want them to smoke, but at the same time saying they got a lot of stuff they're grappling with. We'll deal with cigarettes when we get there. But
that's the point. I mean, look,
one time I would have been saying, no, or leaders in our church would have been saying, you can't smoke on the premises, you know, even if you're outside. But I'm looking at it now, I'm like, you know, they smoke, but they're really getting their lives in a great place. Do I want to come in and start dictating who can smoke a cigarette or take a dip or go down that road? You know?
I remember I did this place asked me to come do a speech or whatever. It was a local thing. They're like, we'll pay you. And I was like, nah, I mean, don't worry about it. It was a small little congregation and I fished around there and hunted and eventually metal detected. I was like, I'm maybe 30 people. I got up there and gave it everything I had because I thought, this community here, you are the people as God's representatives. Y'all need to go out. Y'all know everybody here. Go out and get them here. Share Jesus and be hospitable. So when I was finished, the guy that kind of, ran things, he said, they're not going to do that. And I thought, here we go, Mr. Negativity. And I said, you don't think? He said, nope. I said, why not? He said, because they might come. And I thought about it. I was thinking, what's his point? But he was like, we don't want them in here. They're too rough. They're not like, I was thinking, well, you know what? At least he's honest.
Well, it's tight. It's packed pretty tight when they finally get set to the end of Romans 14. The kingdom of God, that's us, is not a matter of eating and drinking, but of righteousness, peace, for crying out loud, and joy in the Holy Spirit, because anyone who serves Christ in this way is pleasing to God and approved by man. Let us therefore make every effort to do what leads to peace and to mutual edification.
And I would say
it's just not written in stone on every little move you make while you're on planet Earth,
that's the
including the intake of food or smoking a cigarette.
That's the thesis. You're right. And he repeats that in 2 or 3 different ways. But what got me was, so I said, he uses 2 illustrations here, food and holidays, in essence.
Yep.
I said, it's been 2,000 years since he wrote this. Do you think the church at large has gotten the message? Have we done well with this concept or poorly?
I would say we have done poorly.
Because think about all the schisms and splits and splinters off of that, because we've been missing.
There's 25,000, somebody said, of different groups all coming out of one book.
Yeah.
You said, wait a minute here. We ought to be able to come together on God becoming flesh, Jesus dying on a cross to remove our sins.
Right.
Was buried, and that's for everybody, the world, put in a tomb. 3 days later, he's resurrected. It looks like we could stand on that. We're under grace and not law, which is a wonderful thing. But for the life of me, Al, it's a slow slog.
My point was, through the thousands of years, we have not listened to this passage.
No.
We have done just the opposite. In fact, I can remember growing up, and people would go to this passage to make rules for people. And I was like, his point was,
and the
don't make the rule.
Look, and the rule-making part, the creed, becomes more important and more focus on it than the Bible itself.
Because he actually took up,
stay away from creeds is all I can tell you.
It wasn't like he wasn't speaking directly toward us. He brings up people who eat meat versus those who are vegetarians, but then he plainly says, the man who eats everything must not look down on him who does not, which, I know he was talking about our state specifically there, because outside of our state, I don't know if anybody else eats everything.
Well, the reporter, she was a female, and she told me, she said, I just don't think you ought to eat meat. And I said, because of religious reasons? She said, no, I'm not religious at all. She said, I'm not religious. She said, I just don't think it's right for you to eat meat. I said, well...
But she obviously hadn't read Romans 14.
Well, that's correct. I said, well, who told you that it's wrong? Where did you learn that we shouldn't eat meat? And she said, I just don't believe it. I believe we shouldn't eat meat. and that includes you. I said, well, I don't care if you eat it. I said, so what do you eat? Veggies? She said, yeah. I said, well, great. I said, but why would you worry about what I'm eating? And she said, well, I just don't think it's right. I said, so it's not religious reasons. Is it some kind of code within a group of people?
It's just like,
or y'all just kind of reached and got that one and you bind that on people? I said, it was these texts all put together here, but she wasn't even religious.
No, she
and
was
still
agnostic.
wanted me to monitor what I eat according to what
I think
thought.
there's a lot of the people out there like that who would say the same thing.
I know it.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's the part of the point. Let's take another break.
But she left happy, by the way.
She did, and she told me she tried duck on
Yeah.
her way out of town. So maybe you had an impact.
Well, what'd she say? She said, I tried duck. Your dad recommended a restaurant where veggies were served.
She went to Cotton, and then
Yeah.
while she was there, in honor, I guess, of her conversation with you, she tried a duck bite and said it was delicious. So, Jase, I used the illustration of my next door neighbor, John and Chris Howard, who's Corey's parents. They're pescatarians.
Pescatarian.
Which I had to look it up years ago when they told me they were pescatarians.
I was thinking they eat roaches and
You know, the first time I heard
that would be pescatarians.
ants.
first time I ever heard that term was I hate to say it was
What is it?
in a Duck Dynasty episode,
Yeah,
but something they asked me what it was or something, and I mean I'm like, I had never heard that. I had no idea. I said something that didn't even apply. People thought it was funny and they thought I was in on the joke, but I didn't know what. I'd never heard. I had no idea.
What is it?
So a pescatarian is that they don't eat meat, but they do eat meat that swims. They don't eat anything that walks around.
Well, they do eat meat then.
They do eat meat, but only what's in the sea or the lakes. I mean,
So
it's got to be
feeders.
fish.
Water
Why do they
feeder
call it a
fish.
pescatarian?
Well,
Why do
that's
they
just-
call it a
I
scalatarian?
don't
Because they have scale. Well, I guess skin, like a swimitarian. What's pesca?
Well, I didn't do a etymology
Looking it up,
search on the
looking
word,
it
but it
up.
probably has some kind of background of fish. It's mainly fish, but then they eat shrimp.
So fish are in.
Shrimp are in, crawfish are in. If it's in water, they'll eat it. Now, and so I made the point that the reason they decided to try this is because Johnny had colon cancer 20 years ago. Found said he has colon cancer, and he reads something.
Pesca is the sport or business of catching fish.
There you go. Well, that's where it comes from. I figured it had some root
Well,
cause.
turtles are in the water.
Yeah, they would eat turtle.
Oh,
Anything that's in the water, they eat.
shrimp.
Shrimp,
What about a crawfish?
crawfish, they eat it. I guess because it's
So how strongly do they? But I don't think that they put that.
No, so here's my point. My point was they're pescatarians. They've been doing this 20 years. It's their lifestyle now. And they did it because they thought it would help Johnny not, help him with his colon cancer, because they say red meat's bad for if you have colon cancer. I don't know, some report or something. So they decided to try this. Nothing about telling you what you can eat or you can't eat.
So they don't bind this on others.
No. And that was my point. I said, so I told him, Jace, I said, I'm a Cajuntarian. And a Cajuntarian, which I just made this term up, is anything that goes in the pot.
Yeah,
That's what a Cajun, because the Cajun will eat anything. You know what I mean?
that's where gumbo was invented.
Oh, yeah. So I'm a Cajuntarian because
I made a
I'm open to
jambalaya
whatever.
day before yesterday that contained both crawfish and shrimp.
Yep,
I just never tried it before. I said, let me just see if I can.
a crossover.
How was it?
It was outstanding.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? I
It was,
think
it was a jambalaya, and I didn't wait till right toward the end because they didn't get the shrimp out in time to throw them out. They were frozen shrimp. They ran out of shrimp up here. We get trucks coming up in here. Most of it's fresh, but some of it's not. But it was frozen. I said, oh, I didn't even think about that. So I just broke off a big block, and I just dropped it in there. Well, that kind of got in the way of my rice being fluffy, that big thing of frozen shrimp. And look, normally I just wait till the jambalaya is done, put the shrimp and the green onions in, make a couple of tosses and let it steam about 10, 15 minutes. But in this case, I said, well, I've got these shrimp here, they're in there, but it made my rice a little not as fluffy as it should have been. That was the only downside. But about the second day on the jambalaya,
We know how particular
my
you are
rice
about the
began to
devil.
get fluffy when I'd warm it back up. So it took about 3 days to eat it all, but we ate every little piece right down to that thing had bacon in it, ground sausage, link sausage, garlic, onions, 1 bell pepper, and that's what the concoction was. Rice and shrimp and crawfish.
That's an ultimate Cajuntarian meal.
Yeah.
So I made the point.
That was clean your cabinets out and whatever you got, throw it in it.
I've been there. So I made the point that my relationship as a brother in Christ to my neighbor, John, and his wife, Chris, it doesn't change because they're pescatarians. In fact, when Lisa makes a big veggie meal, then we always send the leftovers over to Johnny, and he loves it.
So
we embrace that.
So how do human beings, within all of this various idiosyncrasies pertaining food and what do you say and stuff, you said food and something else.
And holidays.
And days.
Certain days.
Special days. So how does a human being get to the point, I believe I'm there, it doesn't bother me what you're eating. I don't care. You go ahead.
Right.
I mean, you said, well, tomorrow is a holy day to me. I said, whatever, and I go for it. But it doesn't bother me to acquiesce and say, look, in the grand scheme of things, what Jesus did for us is bigger than this. We can get along, and we don't have to agree on every little issue as far as what you're taking into your body. And I would say it gets down into the pharmaceutical issue. I'm not going to let them vaccinate me. I just don't think it's right. I looked at it and said, I tell you what, I'm not the most faithful person in the government that there is, especially in these modern times with what's going on now, when the Marxism is beginning to roar into the picture. It doesn't bother me, though, when someone says, do you trust the medical profession long enough to be vaccinated on the COVID?
You were vaccinated.
Sure, I was. I said,
that's what he's saying.
I just went.
Are or aren't.
I went, duh.
Well, it's not a matter of faith.
I know, but you never said you. I wasn't sure you.
But
were.
some, for religious reasons or whatever, they say, I'm not going to do it. Well, I told them, and they said, what do you think? I said, if you don't want to take it, don't take it.
It's up to you.
I said, but I've made the choice. I think I never had COVID, and now there's a vaccine to protect me from getting COVID. I think I'll just get the vaccine.
Yeah.
So I trust the government that much.
Right. And you
now,
know,
a lot of people on Facebook, he's saying you're
on Facebook?
No, well, we talked to people who were on they said, well, what are you talking about?
Left
I
out
thought
to
you
him,
secretly had joined
They were
Facebook.
blaming me because I said, look, I was vaccinated. I think it was just prudent to do so. If the medical profession have said, look, this is a vaccine, it'll help you with this disease. Well, I've been through polio, and nobody was arguing about it when it came time to take that vaccine. Yeah. Everybody got on board.
Well, apparently, I was reading an article. Let's take our last break. I was reading an article, Dad, where a lot of people did feel that way about it and didn't take it and got polio.
That's right.
And then dealt with it. So I'm saying, it's a person's choice. And look, I haven't talked about it on here, but I got the vaccination as well. But Lisa doesn't want to get it. I mean, it's my wife. And I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm consistent because I wasn't afraid of the virus because I figured if the Lord decided he was going to take me via COVID, I'm fine. But then when the vaccine came out, I'm also not afraid of that. I have no fear here, one way or the other.
It looks like the government's headed toward a situation where if you don't take the vaccine, they begin to punish you for not doing so.
Or make people
Which I think is wrong. I agree with y'all. I think it's your choice. The people mainly of the South are the ones that the media, according to what I've heard, I haven't heard it with my own ears, but I've heard my buddies talk and all. Yeah. They're just ripping the people of the South.
Well, they're saying it's all
like
Trump
they won't
people,
get,
but that's really not true.
They won't get vaccines. And we're all going to die because the people in the South won't get the vaccines. But what you just described is true. I mean, I don't know if I ever shared this, but, Missy got the vaccine because she couldn't go to Cole's graduation in California without it.
Well, that's what the government's doing. I don't like it. I don't like it, but
well, here's the deal. She gets the vaccine, and then her left leg goes numb for 2 days. her words, it was the worst pain she's ever experienced in her life.
So she had a reaction to it.
She had a reaction to it. And
which is fair.
Which other people were telling us, well, don't tell people that, on your podcast because they won't get it. I'm like, wait a minute here.
It happened.
That happened. Now, does it mean, do I have any sign? No. My wife, who has been the most healthy person I've ever known, she doesn't get sick. Y'all know that. She never gets sick.
Right.
But she wanted to go see her son graduate, and she didn't want to take the vaccine, but she did it. And then she described it as more painful than having 3 kids. I mean, she's like, it was the worst. Of course, then she wouldn't go to the hospital because she's like, well, I don't want to make it worse because they gave me this. I mean, she just went off the rails there for a while. But, I mean, she healed up. She got better. Who knows what that was? But it was some kind of reaction, right? A blood clot or something. I mean, I was watching her because I thought, if she gets where I think that her life is in danger, I'm taking her to the hospital.
Because there have been some bad reactions.
If I had to put her over my shoulder.
So constitutionally speaking, a person has the right, in my opinion, to reject pharmaceuticals being put in his or her body if they want to. So I'm not telling them, look, it's mandatory. You've got to do it. I would recommend it, but if you say I'm not going to do it, I'm like, your call. If it violates your conscience.
But Phil, my point is the media for ripping people of the South in the ground, they're not reporting what happened to my wife.
Right.
I mean, I'm not making this up. I have no reason to say, well, look, I'm just telling you what happened. Well, if I was somebody considering taking the vaccine and I heard that, I'd think, I don't know if I want to take that or not.
That's where Lisa's
she couldn't walk for 2 days.
But,
you can do with it what you want. I lean toward people having the vaccine, even though my wife had that happen. But I fully understand if somebody says, you know what, I'm going to take my chances.
That's right.
Or they say, well, what happened to your wife may happen to me. That's something you need to consider because that happened.
Yep.
Well, and that's what's going to happen with Lisa. The first time we've got a trip scheduled to the Bahamas and she can't go because she ain't got vaccine. Right. She's probably going to go get the vaccine.
Well, Missy probably told her what happened to her, and that may be, you probably found out the real reason she don't want to do it.
Well, and we have another friend, Laura, who has had some heart issues since she took the vaccine. And there's some rare cases where it does affect people, in that way. And so, I mean, it's out there. It's true. Everybody has to make a decision what you want to do. I had no fear either way. I had no problems either way. I told Lisa, I said, well, I guess if I'd have dropped dead, then you'd said, yeah, that's why I didn't take the virus, but I didn't. So still.
But if you get the virus and that kills you, then you say, well.
So the point I think is, and I'm glad you brought it up. That's a good kind of hot topic issue going on right now. But that's not a matter of faith. In other words, should you look down on somebody because they're really strong about I don't want to take it?
Not at all.
You're not doing the right thing. You're putting people in danger. It's not a matter of faith, and that's exactly what this.
It's really not a matter for governments to decide.
No,
in my opinion,
it's not.
I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
it's like Missy was the only person the member of my family who hadn't got it.
Yeah,
she hadn't got it, but she went and took the vaccine because she had to.
That's what I did. I didn't get it.
But then, she didn't, I don't know what she got then, but she couldn't walk for 2 days. I mean, she got something that was weird. And so, I don't know. She's not happy about it. I mean, she's not out there on the street saying, don't take it. She's just thinking, you forced me to do something that I just decided not to do. But because everybody else had got it, and she thought she was immune. Just because I'm married to her, I got it, and she still didn't get it.
They might want to cancel me for my logic, but I just thought, I said, I baptized a couple of hundred people in 2 years on the coronavirus during its heyday.
Yep.
I couldn't baptize them and stay 6 feet away from them. Baptism is
it's intimate. You're close.
You're close. And I have their hands, and my hand is on their back, and they're eased down in the water. So I just weighed it, and I said, well, we have a government mandate that says I have to stay 6 feet away with a mask, and I can't touch them. But I said, so what are we going to do? Just tell them to go on until the coronavirus? I said, the Bible said, Jesus said, go make disciples and baptize them. Good enough for me. So I'm carrying out instructions from the one who died and was raised from the dead. I said, let's just go with the one who raises the dead, because if this kills us, he'll raise us up. So that was my logic. And they would say that, idiot. But I mean, that's the way my view of it.
Right. And we found
So
out.
I never had it, and I had every opportunity to get it. At least 200. I'm close proximity. So say what you will. My conscience told me I'm not going to say there's no baptisms around here till the coronavirus leaves. I mean, how would that fit?
Well, we're working on this for 2 years now, but it's pretty evident that the main people at risk were older people or people who already had some things wrong with them. And those are people that have died. But when you look at everybody else from 65 and down, not many.
Well, there's some.
You know,
I talked to a physical.
Percentage-wise, you're talking about 99.5%.
I mean, that's true. But I think there's been some people that have been healthy in the tip-top shape and died from it.
True.
Which I
not
know.
many.
You say, well, how do you know that's a fact? Because just because I met a guy who's a physical therapist who deals with corona patients when they get out of the hospital, and he said most of them had health issues. He said, but there was a couple of guys who were at the top of their health workout, marathon runner, or whatever. And I was like, really? I was surprised. But he said, yeah, I mean, it happens. But still, I don't think it changes the point.
Right.
It ultimately comes to you. But, of course, I had this discussion with someone, and they kept saying, well, you wear a seatbelt. You know, they were trying to make analogies on,
with the mask.
Well, shouldn't you have a right not to wear a seatbelt? I was kind of like, I think I should. Honestly, I mean, I don't think that should be against the law. Am I putting my life more in danger? Yes. But do I wear my seatbelt? Yes. Because, I got in the habit of it.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a little different when you're putting something new in your body. I just think you should have that right.
You have the right to make the call, I think.
Yeah.
And to wear the mask. I mean, because I don't like wearing the mask. I can't breathe. I have sinus trouble already, but they're forcing me every time I get on an airplane in the airport for 8 hours to have breathing difficulties.
I like wearing the mask. I'm not so, recognizable. I just like just old hobo wearing a mask.
Yep.
We're out of time.
Thanks for listening to the Unashamed podcast. Help us out by rating us on iTunes. And don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube, and be sure to click that little bell to get notified about new episodes. And for even more content that you won't get anywhere else, subscribe to Blaze TV at blazetv.com/unashamed.